Distinguished members of the press, we start the joint press conference of the President of the Government, Kovachevski, and the President of the European Council, Michel. First, we will hear their statements, and later we will hear some questions from the members of the press. Prime Minister Kovachevski. Thank you. Distinguished President of the European Council, Mr. Charles Michel, distinguished guests, members of the press, distinguished citizens. In these past few days, the main topic of my meetings with you are the open, broad consultations. We open to use one of the most favorable positions of our time to finally accomplish one of the most important strategic objectives, our membership within the European Union. The European proposal that we have been discussing today with all equally relevant stakeholders in the country is a proposal that incorporates our remarks and clearly stated positions. The proposal with all its documents is publicly available, and the bilateral protocol will also be published, the protocol with the Republic of Bulgaria. I avail myself of this opportunity to express gratitude for the support that these days we have been publicly receiving from the European Commission, the European countries, the international community, the United States of America, and all other friends and neighbors regarding the European modified proposal for the negotiating framework for North Macedonia as a base that will enable commencement of negotiations with the EU. This proposal is the base for the exceptionally prominent issue of progress and securing what we have been waiting for 17 years after we became a candidate country for the EU. The proposal fully complies with the resolution adopted by the Assembly on the state positions in the dispute with Bulgaria. This shows and reaffirms that the government, me in the capacity of Prime Minister, and the competent institutions responsibly represent these state interests at home and beyond. This responsible statesman-like behavior yielded results, and we have a favorable proposal in front of us. The decision for the future of the country and the citizens depends on us. The citizens of North Macedonia deserve to live as part of the European family, following European standards and sharing European values. They deserve for their voices to be heard from the inside, to be equal with all other EU member states, to have their say in the most important decisions regarding Europe. Dear members of the press, dear citizens, the European proposal has well-defined position for clear and unambiguous acceptance of the Macedonian language. I would like to use this opportunity to reiterate that the Macedonian language in the proposal is clear and equal to all other languages of the European Union without any footnotes or explanations. The amended, defined, and supplemented French proposal gives us what we have been fighting for years: clear formulation of the Macedonian language. We have met the key position, the state position, which has been most important to us and to which we have remained consistent. This proposal makes all speculations alluding to the contrary false and untrue. We, the Macedonians, take pride in our history. We take pride in our language. We are proud of our identity and all its aspects. So far, nobody has managed to assimilate the Macedonian people, nor will this ever happen. And this is a fact. The modified European proposal puts the bilateral and the historical issues outside the negotiating framework. The open issues with neighbors should be closed. But yes, that is true, but we will have time to do this until they are dignified and just for both parties. Following the principles that treat the good neighborly relations as a foundation of the European Union and pursuant to the Stabilization and Association Agreement signed on our part in 2001, our obligation as a future member state will be to work on the good neighborly relations, as we have been doing by fulfilling the obligations of the Treaty of Good Neighborly Relations and the Prespa Agreement. In that regard, I would like to reiterate that the protocol between the Republic of North Macedonia and the Republic of Bulgaria has not been noted in the negotiating framework. It is a bilateral document that is not part of the European package. The European proposal and the protocol are two different, unrelated processes that currently coincide in time. Another important thing is the fact that the negotiating process and the intergovernmental conference and the screening process can be started immediately without any postponements, unconditionally. This final European proposals enables unconditional start of the accession negotiations of the Republic of North Macedonia with the European Union, and it operationalizes the decision made by the European Council in March 2020. We can start the EU negotiations immediately after we accept the proposal on our part. Therefore, we should no longer wait. We should use this historic chance for progress of the country. We must think rationally, wise, and responsibly. We must think of our children's future. It has not been easy so far, but time has come to put the daily politics aside and to stick to the facts, to official documents that are available, and to act as statesmen, to behave responsibly. I assure you that until now, we will continue to consistently stick to the state positions regarding the negotiations with Bulgaria in any aspect. We protect the national interest and the Macedonian national identity. You know that we promised, and we kept our promise, that we will fight to keep our key red lines that we have been repeating for months and on which the Assembly has adopted a consensual resolution. And we will continue to do so in future. All decisions we have made so far have been difficult, but they have brought us enormous benefits. We should use this single opportunity and fulfill our long-awaited strategic objective, full-fledged membership in the European Union. We must fulfill our vision for prosperity of the country, for safe future of the next generations. We must act wise and statesmanlike. Thank you.
Председателот на Европскиот совет Шарл Мишел да се обрати.
Thank you, dear Prime Minister, dear Dimitar. Thank you for your warm welcome back in North Macedonia. It's just a couple of weeks since my last visit. I would also like to thank the President and the Prime Minister for our constructive and very useful talks today. I will have the occasion also to meet with the political party coordinators in the Parliament later this afternoon. I come to Skopje at a crucial moment for North Macedonia, but also a crucial moment for the European Union. At my last press conference with the President, I shared my strong personal conviction that the future of my 3 children and the future of all our children will be safer and more prosperous with the Western Balkans in the European Union. And at the European Council, following my previous visit, is exactly the same sentiment that inspired the 27 European leaders to take important geopolitical decisions for the future of our Union. We decided to re-energize the enlargement process and to further advance the gradual integration of the EU and the region already during the enlargement process. The 27 EU leaders also met with the Western Balkans leaders in Brussels 2 weeks ago. We had a frank, open, and hard discussion, but it was much needed. We opened our ears, we listened carefully to each other, and as a result, we formally decided to inject a new dynamic and a new determination to move forward together with the Western Balkans. We want you to join us, and our goal is to speed up the process. And the launch of negotiations will rapidly bring advantages in investment and trade, for instance. It will also be part of more EU initiatives and programs normally open only for EU member states. You are deciding on your future and on the pivotal next steps. And in my opinion, North Macedonia belongs in the EU. In my opinion, your future is with us, and together we are on the eve of a possible breakthrough in your country's EU accession process. We have worked towards this moment since March 2020, when we decided to open negotiations with North Macedonia and Albania, and last week, the Council of the EU put forward a revised compromise solution, and personally, I'm absolutely convinced that this is a balanced solution that addresses your main concerns, and the goal is clear: to start North Macedonia's accession talks and to finally move forward to build our common EU future. If you say yes, the first Intergovernmental Conference will be organized in the next few days and will implement the March 2020 decision, and the next steps will follow immediately. And most notably, the screening process will begin, not only the updated explanatory screening, but also the bilateral screening. Negotiating teams will be called to Brussels without delay, and importantly, this proposal clearly refers to the Macedonian language without qualification by the EU. Macedonian language is your language, and the proposal respects that. The acquis, the EU legislation, will all be translated into Macedonian. We are also very aware of the concerns expressed by some regarding your national identity. And you can count on my full support as President of the European Council to systematically stand up for your legitimate rights. And good neighbourly relations are also an essential element in the enlargement process, like it is for all Western Balkan partners. As for respect for minorities, it's enshrined in the EU treaty, and North Macedonia has already built an impressive track record on this. You are an example of how a multi-ethnic country can advance. If you change the constitution, it will be seen as a further commitment to these high standards, and it will automatically, without need for further decision, trigger the second IGC, and it will automatically complete the opening of the negotiations. The decision, of course, lies with you. It is your sovereign choice, and I know how committed your country and your people are to the free world and democratic values and principles. And let me honestly tell you, as a friend, this opportunity is too important to be missed. We have never been so close. Macedonians, you have a historic opportunity to say yes. Yes to the start of negotiations. Yes to the EU. Yes for our children. Your country has a chance to once again become an enlargement frontrunner. And EU-related reforms will also get a new dynamic. These reforms will bring you closer to the EU and lead to greater prosperity, stability, and resilience for your people. You can count on our political and financial support, and maybe more importantly, on our respect and loyalty. Dear Dimitar, dear Macedonians, only together can we face the enormous challenges of our times. Only together can we live in prosperity and security. And only together can we overcome our greatest obstacles. I strongly believe we can do that right now. Thank you.
Ви благодарам. Продолжуваме со прашањата.
Thank you. Now we will continue with the questions from the journalists here who are here. We'll have 2 + 2 questions. 2 questions for each. Katarina Nishkova, Citadel Television. I have a question to the Prime Minister, and I will have a brief question to Mr. Michel. Prime Minister, working groups are already announced between the government and the opposition in the Assembly regarding the conclusions that the Assembly should adopt. Will you have a meeting with Mickovski, and whether your party, SDSM, will participate in building such joint conclusions? and how much do they refer to the French proposal and can amend something? Do you take into consideration all these citizens outside so that you can make the final decision? And briefly to Mr. Michel, you mentioned that this will further influence the enlargement in the European Union. Whether Macedonia will be a precedent and whether this precedent will reflect as a new practice for the future candidate countries. Thank you for your question. First, regarding your first question, the Assembly of the Republic of North Macedonia, I have reiterated this on several occasions. It is the place where political parties should discuss. After the consultations are completed, these consultations led by the government, after the bilateral protocol is presented with the Republic of Bulgaria, all documents that have been publicly presented so far and another that will be presented very soon will be sent to the Assembly of the Republic of North Macedonia. Representatives of all parliamentary political parties are in the Assembly, and they will have meetings where they will participate. They will have participants from their political parties, and they will need to discuss the conclusions regarding the European proposal that was issued by the European Union. I believe that President Michel was very clear in his statement that we have a proposal that enables us immediate start of the negotiations with the EU. It is up to the Assembly whether we will make a decision to start negotiations and with what conclusions. Also, the representatives of political parties should discuss on this. They're very experienced members of the parliament, and they should give these conclusions to the government to implement it and to put them into operation regarding the decision that will be made by the Assembly. We had a public meeting with Mr. Mickovski where we discussed, you were all informed about it. I also had a meeting with Mr. Sela, and I had a meeting with Mr. Kasami, and the media were informed of these meetings. So the coordinators of the political groups, political parties in the Assembly, not all of them have parliamentary groups, they will all sit down and discuss on the conclusions that will be made by the Assembly after the government officially presents the proposal that was issued by the European Union. This proposal is a proposal of 27 member states, and here today, as a guest of the country and at this press conference, is the President of the European Council, where all leaders of these 27 member states take part. We are a democratic society, and always and at any time, each citizen, pursuant to the laws, can express their political or any other position. It should be compliant with the laws. I hope it will be compliant with the laws, because yesterday we had 4 hurt police officers, and after the briefing with the Ministry of the Interior, they're planning something that it is not good for a NATO member state, and it is not good for a candidate country. We proved that this is a transparent process. We proved that everything that was proposed by the European Union was shared with the public, first in English language and afterwards into Macedonian. This translation into Macedonian language was a bit delayed, but it had to be translated by official translators, and it should have been assessed by the European Commission, because this is a European document, and it is up to us to make a decision Are we going to take the step or not? Thank you.
First of all, I would like to share with you that my presence today is a signal of respect. A signal of respect for the Macedonians, because I know, and within the EU we know that since March 2020 we lost time, and we didn't lose time because of North Macedonia, but because it was not possible to have an agreement by unanimity within the European Council. And finally, because we worked hard, because we made a lot of efforts, we were able to get an agreement by unanimity and to lift the veto, and also to make a proposal, a transparent proposal. And I'm here to listen to all the political actors in the country, to exchange views, to be transparent also. And it is very clear, if there is a positive decision taken in North Macedonia, it will trigger automatically a clear process with the start of the negotiations. I have explained the first IGC, the immediate start of the screening process, and the second IGC after the change of the constitution that will be automatically triggered. But more than that, I think that the decision that I hope will be taken here in North Macedonia in the following hours or days, this is a sovereign choice that needs to be taken by the authorities in the country. I really hope that this choice will reflect this aspiration for the free world, for the democratic principles and the democratic values. This is a fundamental choice for the future. And certainly the war launched by Russia against Ukraine is showing to all of us what it means, an autocratic regime which doesn't respect the international law, and which decided to launch a brutal, aggressive war against a sovereign country of 40 million inhabitants. What do we want for this country? What do we want for the Western Balkans? We have within the EU a clear choice, a clear vision. We hope it will be possible to speed up the process, and we sincerely hope that the decision, if it is taken here in North Macedonia, will allow us to speed up, to accelerate the process, to deepen immediately the ties with the people of this country, because as I said before, we are convinced that the European continent will be safer and stronger and more prosperous with the Western Balkans within the EU.
Anna Antevska.
Anna Antevska to Mr. Michel. Mr. President Michel, why the European Union favors the primitive requests of Bulgaria that is trying to prove that there is no Macedonian language, there is no Macedonian identity, and on the other hand, in the European Union, people can declare themselves or male or female. I'm also not sure. Can she repeat the question, please? Why the European Union stands behind the request of Bulgaria, who believe that there is no Macedonian nation, there is no Macedonian language, and on the other hand, the European Union citizens can declare themselves regarding gender, whether they're female or male, and Bulgaria negates the language within the European Union.
With all my respect, I can only repeat what I said before, and I clearly made the point that I will always stand up to defend the legitimate rights of the Macedonians. In my capacity of President of the European Council, it is very clear that we want to play a positive role, a constructive role, to make sure that within the EU we share all the same values, the same principles, and I'm very confident that it will be possible to make progress, but I cannot follow your starting point, following which there would be an assessment that you think would be made by the European Union. This is not a right assessment.
Благодарам. Ивана, Алфа телевизија, поведете се вашето.
Ivana, Alpha TV, I have a question to Prime Minister Kovachevski. Whether the French proposal has been passed at the government session, whether after you did not succeed in convincing the Macedonian citizens that it is good that identity and language will not be touched upon, you invited Mr. Michel today unannounced to come to Skopje. Will the coalition fall apart if part of your smaller coalition partners do not In practice, they said that they do not accept the French proposal. Regarding Mr. Michel's visit, he himself expressed the will to come to North Macedonia. And we were informed by his office that he wants to visit North Macedonia because the European Union has delivered a proposal to us and wanted to be part of these consultations. He met the president of the country, also as I met with him. He met the members of the government just as I met the members of the government. He met representatives of the political parties just as I met them. And he will meet the coordinators of the parliamentary groups as I meet with them each month when I'm responding to their questions in the Assembly or on other occasions in the Assembly pursuant to the constitutional obligations of the President of the government. Whether this was on today's government session, no, the proposal was not put for discussion and adoption. After the consultations will be completed, this proposal will be delivered to the Assembly officially, because today each citizen in the country can see the proposal, involving the members of the parliament, of course. This is a proposal issued by the European Union to Republic of North Macedonia for commencement of negotiations for membership of North Macedonia into the European Union. After the negotiations are completed, after the screening process is over, the negotiations are over, the country becomes member of the EU, all citizens will be citizens of the European Union. The decision for starting or not starting the negotiations is borne by the institutions in the country. Each citizen has an opportunity to read the proposal. It is up to the ministers to explain this to the citizens who want to be informed through the media on details regarding these documents. The citizens in this country are represented through members of the parliament. And these members of the parliament, pursuant to their constitutional competences and obligations, make decisions, make conclusions, and give tasks to the government that has the executive power to implement it. This is not about whether President Michel will convince someone, whether the president of the government will convince someone, whether a minister will convince someone. This is about the political parties, the representatives of the people, the members of the parliament, to make a decision whether the country will start negotiations with the EU or it will not start negotiations with the EU. This is the decision ahead of us. Regarding the coalition is stable. Today we had a government where all ministers were present. Tamara, Telma TV, I have a question to Mr. Michel. 2 weeks ago in Ohrid, you did not comment because it was a draft version. Today I hope you will answer my question. Why such negotiations are proposed to Macedonia? This is precedent, having in mind that it will negotiate on topics, bilateral topics. And please, concrete, not political, not diplomatic. Tell me, is there a way, can you prevent Bulgaria in the negotiating process not to block the country on bilateral topics that are part of the annual reports and the measures for implementation of the Good Neighborly Relations Treaty within the negotiating framework? Thank you.
Now, first of all, this is not a secret for all of you and for all of us that the good neighborly relationships are part of the enlargement process for the Western Balkan countries. This is the first element. This is a first important information, I think, point one. Point two, if I decided indeed to propose to the government to come today here, this is not to make sure that we have the occasion not to try to convince someone who would not be convinced, but that we have the occasion to make sure that we have the best possible mutual understanding about the important topics of this proposal that's on the table. And that's why we spend time with the government, but also with political leaders. And we will have other meetings today, this afternoon, with the political coordinators in the parliament. And it is very clear that in the negotiation framework, we want to take into account the different clusters, the different progress that will be made, and we will do everything, and I will do everything in my capacity of President of the European Council in order to avoid that some would be attempted to spoil the process with topics that would not be legitimate. It means that on the EU side we have common principles, we have common values, and we stand together in order to promote those values, and we share those values with the people of North Macedonia. I mentioned that this country is a very good example of multi-ethnic country, and it's important to keep the cohesion of the country. And I'm also confident that by the start, or with the start of the negotiations talk, in parallel, in a separate process, it will be also possible to make the solutions that will be needed in order to identify what are the topics that needs to be resolved at the bilateral level. But we can count on myself, and you can count on the EU institution to make sure that this process of enlargement will progress without being trapped, without being spoiled by some elements that are not directly related to this enlargement process.
Благодарам, овде го завршуваме пресот.
Јас само уште една порака сакам да испратам.
I would like to only send one more message. What happens in front of the government right now? First, it is organized by political parties that clearly stood against North Macedonia's membership into NATO and EU. And they declare opposing to this. Republic of North Macedonia is a democratic country. It has well-defined legislation and institutions, especially in exercising rights of all citizens. Anyone in this country can demonstrate, can protest. I have also protested for defending the students' rights, for defending the professors' rights, and on many other occasions. But never has occurred, except once, and now this is the second time, to have people protesting with covered faces, people who offend police officers, who strike them. Anyone can protest on any issue, but going with masks and covering your faces, that is something that a country that went to 27th of April cannot allow itself. You saw yesterday that the police withdrew. And here we are speaking of a proposal delivered by the European Union. A proposal delivered by the European Union. 27 member states represented by the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, have delivered North Macedonia a proposal for commencement of negotiations. Each of us in our country is represented through the members of the parliament, no matter the political party. And all of us will need to make a decision whether we want to start negotiations through the members of the parliament or not. But these police officers that are outside are not to be blamed because they do their work. This building that has been struck with eggs and whatever, is not to blame. This proposal comes from 27 member states. We have broad consultations on this proposal. No one hides anything. If someone thought that this is a proposal that was agreed somewhere by somebody that was prepared, here is the president of the Council of the 27 leaders of the EU member states. He's here. He presented this proposal before the government, before the political parties, and he will do that before the coordinators of the parliamentary groups. This is the key. Yes, we can protest, but not with covered faces, not by injuring police officers. This is not something that a NATO member state and a candidate country should not allow itself. Thank you. Thank you. This ends the press conference of Prime Minister Kovachevski and the President of the European Council. Thank you for your interest.